Today's session, I'm talking about quantitative aptitude key strategy inputs. This is a follow-up to what I did yesterday. So those of you who are watching this one, please also watch this in conjunction with yesterday's class. It's a class only in the sense that I'm going to talk to you about how to prepare for quantitative aptitude. So let me first summarize the issues I had talked about yesterday. I had mentioned that the first thing you need to understand is when you are preparing for an exam like this for QA part especially, the first thing I had mentioned was that you have to first define your objective and key what do you want to do in the QA section, how much do you want to score in the QA section, and that objective comes out of the overall objective, how much you want to score inside the CAT. When I talk about score, I don't mean to talk about percentile. I mean to talk about the score, the net score, because if you the way the CAT works and the way all other exams work, all of the exams of these nature work, is that if you take care of your percentages, your percentiles will take care of themselves. So if you take care of your percentile takes care of itself. So CAT is basically a 50% exam. That means if you can score net score of 50% overall, uh, you'll always get a high percentile. In fact, this year in CAT 2022, 50% was as high as 99.6, 99.7 percentile this year, which was very different from earlier years, where you had close to 99 percentile at 50%, but this year 99 percentile came down to something like 40, 42, 43% of the net score. So when you're preparing for these exams, your focus has to be on managing your net scores and your percentage scores. So in quants, then you can have a defensive strategy where you're saying that I want to score 20 marks and I want to clear the sectional cutoff. You'll get approximately 75, 80 percentile. You'll be able to clear the cutoffs at 20 marks out of 66. You want to score 30, 35, somewhere in the range of 30 to 40. Then you're doing better. You're doing well at the section. And if you're scoring 30 to 40 overall, then you have to essentially solve around 15, 16 questions out of 22, and then you might want to top the section. You might want to score 45, 50, 50 plus also out of 66, in which case you need to be able to solve 17, 18 questions out of 22, and to be able to solve 18 questions out of 22, you have to have the knowledge of around 20, 21 out of 22. So this is the first point I had mentioned yesterday. There are two dimensions of your preparation then. One dimension of your preparation is the ability to get the knowledge up. The second dimension of your preparation is to build a speed, right? And a lot of people ask me this question: "Ki speed kaise बढ़ाएं? How do we increase speed?" So my answer to that, my standard answer to that is that you can only raise speed after you know how to do it. You cannot run unless you learn to walk. So your first focus, before you start focusing on your speed of solving, your first focus is to learn at least one way. And you need to understand this. There are, in quants, for most questions, there will be multiple ways of solving. So you are trying to discover at least one way of solving every question, first of all. When you're talking about the chapters in which you're going to go deep and you're going to say that, okay, give me any question on this chapter, I'm going to be able to solve this, or I'm going to go ahead and solve this. So that's one part of it. And so what your focus has to be during your first rounds, and if you remember yesterday I talked about that you need, and this is one of the principles of preparing for QA, that you have to be ready to study every chapter 2, 3, 4 times. Okay? You're to be ready to study any chapter 2, 3, 4 times, and you actually have to plan 3 or 4 rounds of your portion coverage. So when you talk about quants, in quants, the first round of your portion coverage is mostly about knowledge, getting the depth of knowledge, getting the ability to solve more and more difficult questions, getting the knowledge of that, and maybe the second round also is mostly about knowledge. So what will happen when you and if you remember, I talked about theory and then assisted problem solving and self problem solving, 3 kinds of methods through which you study a chapter. And bottom line is only you close a chapter only when you can do 200 250 questions of that topic of that chapter in a self problem solving mode. So what will happen is when you pick up 250 questions on a topic uh, for self problem solving, you will not be able to solve all the questions. Especially if you have if the question bank is decent and good quality, then तुमसे सब question solve नहीं होने वाला है. So what you and expecting that you'll be able to solve all questions is kind of foolishness in that context. So don't expect that you'll be able to solve all the questions. There'll naturally be some questions which you'll not solve, specifically if your quality of questions is good and your skill level is not of the level where you can score a 99.5, 99.7 percentile in CAT. So don't get bothered about questions that you can't do in the first round. So what will happen is, let's say there'll be a split between, if you pick up 250 questions, there'll be a split between how many you can solve and how many you can't solve. So allow that split to happen naturally in the first round. So that split might be 70-30, 70% solved, 30 not solved, or it can be 50-50, or it can even be 30-70 for weak students. So whatever the split is, allow that to happen. And when you go into the second round, you have to do two things. When you go into the second round of a topic, of a chapter, you have to do two things. One, you have to go back to all the questions you solved, all the questions that you were able to successfully solve in the first round. You have to solve them again. So solving them again, what it does is that it builds your reaction, and it naturalizes that reaction for you. So when you solve the question the second time, the first way of solving it that you learned during your first go at that question, that gets embedded deeper into your mind, and you'll not forget. Then after that, what will happen inside the exam, that solution will come back to you. And more importantly, second round you can also start looking for alternate ways to solve the same questions. You can look for alternate ways to solve the same questions. So these are two things you do in the second round with the questions you have solved. And then you also try the questions you have not been able to solve. So let's say you had a 70-30 split, 70 questions solved and 30 questions not solved, 30% questions not solved. The 30% not solved pe you try them again the second time when you come back to the chapter the second time. So what will happen is, maybe half of them, maybe 60% of them will get solved, because the 70% questions you have solved in the first round would have raised your ability. So when you could not solve a question in the first round, you are not the same person any longer, because now you have solved so many questions and you have learned much more. So the first round of preparation would have if done correctly, would have raised your ability. So the second round, when you come to the same questions, you will discover that you will solve a lot of those questions which were not being done in the first round. So that's the bottom line. So the second round is about resolving all the questions that you did in the first round and trying the questions which you are not able to do in the first round the second time, right? And for most people, by the end of the second round, you will have a 90-95% hit rate on the questions. But in case your hit rate is less than 90%, 95%, after second round, you might just need one more round to get to that level. So even the 30-70 people who are able to solve 30% to start with and not able to solve 70%, their progression typically by the end of the second round will be 50-55% solved and 40-45% not solved. And by the end of the third round, the third go at the chapter, you will be able to get to 75-80 at least, and 20% not solved. So that is how you actually go about it, right? One more word. Somebody was asking me yesterday about previous year questions. CAT ke previous year questions are available from 1999 to 2008. Of course, they are available before that also. Thank you so much, Deepak, for your wishes. So they are of course available before 99, but 99 के पहले के papers का कोई value नहीं है ज़्यादा, because this time CAT was a very different exam, and the kind of questions you will see in CAT before 99 were basically a speed test kind of an exam. So 99 to 2008 you can do during your round 1 and round 2. But I specifically request people or advise people that 2017 to 2022 CAT के papers के previous year questions को तुम last में देखना. Last में मतलब during July, August, September, October time frame, because you have to protect those questions, because at various points in your preparation, you want to know how good you are with respect to CAT questions as they come. So you got only one opportunity to do it. So if you finish the CAT questions in your first round itself, what will happen is later in June, July, August, when you want to find out whether you need more work in a chapter or not, you will not have the CAT questions to check that. So you'll have to simulate other questions, and simulation is not as good as the original. So my advice is keep the 17 to 22 CAT papers untouched if you're going for CAT 23. Only test them in July, August, September as full length tests, and then be ready for. I mean, you have to cover them definitely, but in July, August, September. 99 to 2008 papers you can do during the first 6 months also. Chalo, so that's about it. What I wanted to mention. So that completes what I was talking about yesterday. It completes these two sessions together. Complete your this thing. Yeah, mostly coaching material have recent CAT questions. That's a good point, but that should not be the case, right? So in my book, I don't do that, right? So it's not the right thing to do in terms of the preparation strategy and the preparation process.